Hello, welcome to Samii Reporting, a podcast of African intellectual property jurisprudence. Today, I'm going to be talking about an interesting and current topic. I'm going to be discussing the issues of the changing regimes and the changing policy of global tariff influenced by the actions of the United States government led by President Trump. Looking at how the changing landscape of tariff regimes affects the cultural creative industries of Africa. Particularly, my focus today is going to be on the movie industry of Africa. So, as we all know, or as we have heard in the news, President Trump has given notice that he's likely, or is about, or he may increase the tariff on movies produced or made outside the United States that will be coming into the U.S. There will be an 100% tariff on every movie that comes into the commerce stream in America that has not been produced or that was not produced in the United States. So what has that got to do with Africa? It definitely, if this policy goes into action, if the President of the United States, like we have noticed, there's a lot of changes, tariffs increased 50%, 100% today, tomorrow 25%. Well, if the United States places an 100% tariff on movies from Africa that will be entering into U.S., that means the emerging, vibrant cultural industry of Africa will be adversely affected. Now, since 1990, led by Nigerian movie industry, popularly called Nollywood, Africa has been making giant strides. They've been producing economically successful movies. And, from the latest statistics we have, Nigeria Nollywood is the third largest movie industry right now, led by Hollywood from the US and Bollywood in India. So now Nigeria, from the best of my knowledge, I'm going to start today's portion of this podcast by zeroing on Nigeria particularly, because Nigeria seems to be the heavyweight in Africa in terms of movie production right now. Nigeria has a very successful business model in terms of movie production and in terms of returns and spread, in terms of distribution also. Nollywood is seen on most of the major video online on-demand platforms like Netflix and other platforms, Amazon and YouTube. So now that means that the producers of movies or Nollywood movies might not gain profitably from their production. But, Nigeria and US are members of the World Trade Organization, and we all know that the primary objective or primary goals of World Trade Organization WTO, sorry, if I said World Health, WTO, I mean World Trade Organization, is to, as far as possible, remove trade barriers and encourage free trades and in goods and services. So, movie now has become goods and also has become services. So, I'm not going to delineate the legalistic, what is trade or what is goods and what are services. I'm going to lump the movie production industry in Nigeria, Nollywood, as both service and goods. So let's start from that premise. The current laws that regulate trade in the world, principal ones that is warehoused by the World Trade Organization, for example, the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, GATT, the General Agreement on Trade and Services, and also the Agreement on Trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights, TRIPS. All these agreements, Nigeria, most of Africa are parties to it. They've acceded to these treaties, and they are now part of the laws of Nigeria, Ghana, Cameroon, including the U.S. Although there are certain aspects of most of these treaties that might not be applicable in most of these countries, including the U.S. Well, my focus now is, how do we confront this issue? What if 100% tariff is attached to movies that are produced in Africa, that are made in Africa? How is Africa going to sell or going to distribute and make profit out of this? Now, this is the time where the African countries are making a headway in terms of, even though it's not enough from my perspective, at least we are making headway in terms of maximizing our cultural assets, our folklore, artistry, our skills in the form of movies, music, dance, fashion. So now, if you attach 100% tariff, for instance, on a movie that the producers want to show or wants to sell or wants to distribute in the U.S., it's definitely going to affect your bottom line. So how are we going to contain? Apart from my view that probably the African Union, through the agency of the African Free Trade Continental Area, with the agreements we have of consolidating the African market, Africa should start looking at how we can actually be doing more business amongst ourselves as a starting point. Although someone will say, which I agree, that you can't just distribute your movies in Africa if you really want to be, if you really want to make a lot of money. So your movie has to be international. Movie now with the advantage of AI and the digital transmission platforms, it's easier and profitable to distribute your movies across all platforms globally. So how are we going to confront, even if this does not come to pass, the fact that this idea has been thrown out there? Perhaps one day something is going to happen in that line. So now, we could say that the trade agreements, WTO, through the most favored nations doctrine that that says that countries cannot normally or discriminate between their trading partners, or either the national treatment doctrine that says we should treat foreign and local goods equally, especially when they have been introduced into the stream of commerce. Well, there are also exceptions under the MFN, the most favored nations doctrine. And I suspect one of the exceptions that President Trump is using to raise a barrier against products that are considered to have been traded unfairly from specific countries. So a country might decide to raise tariff or any trade barrier against any product that that country considered that the other country has not been fair to them. So the whole political and economic situation now we have, apparently, I'm not speaking for President Trump, apparently U.S. wants to raise tariffs on movies, alleging that American movies have not been fairly treated by other parts of the country, or other parts of the world. So therefore, if you want to bring movie into the U.S., then you should treat the U.S. fairly. Whether that argument is right or wrong, well, we are still debating it in this public square right now. But what I just want to show us is that even within the context of communal trade agreements like we have on TRIPS, on WTO, we still find out that most of the, especially the developed and politically powerful, in quotes, countries, can still circumvent the objective of non-restrictive trade. So Africa should start thinking more inwardly now by also making sure that African countries, using Nigeria again as an example, probably the Nigerian government should look seriously into boosting the infrastructure so that the cost of making movies in Nigeria for the producers there, we know about issues of custom tariff, bringing in machineries and stuff that are needed to produce movies, even inviting talents to Nigeria to help in producing movies, visa issues, issues of security, road network. So how about having a standardized, well-developed movie village, so to say, infrastructures where budding Nollywood producers could go and shoot movies? And those are the kind of things, in tax forms of tax rebates for those who want to invest in the downstream movie industry in Nigeria, and also investing in technology in terms of the bandwidth, so that more online distribution within Africa and Nigeria will be accessible to movie producers. I think those are the kind of things we should start addressing ourselves to, because it's about time Africa, politically and also economically, starts taking advantage of the era we live in, the era of abundant talent, the era of abundant skill, and the era of innovative technology. So, at this point, probably the hope and the aspirations of the cultural creative industries of Africa lies with the African Continental Free Trade Agreements. Hopefully, AU would energize the policies and the politics of making sure that African movie industries are not caught pants down in the new tariff politics. Thank you for listening. I am Samiai reporting.